I like to think about marketing generally as marketing against a spectrum of demand. And when you're thinking about retargeting, a lot of folks are kind of in that high demand stage.
Retargeting is crucial to optimal app monetization. When it's done well, it feels seamless. Gentle nudge brings customers back. When it's done poorly, it's wasted spend, it's unhappy users, it's false signals of success. To dig into the mechanics of retargeting, especially in FinTech, we're chatting with Paul Kovalski. He's the head of marketing at Self Financial. He's the host of the Efficient Spend podcast, and he's directly driven over $200 million in revenue through paid media. Not too many people can say that. Paul brings a rare mix of practical experience and strategic insight. He thinks deeply about incrementality, how much retargeting is actually moving the needle, and he thinks about the balance between paid and unpaid tactics. He's been hands-on with infrastructure and automation, from MMPs to CDPs to pixels and real-time audience updates. In this episode of Growth Masterminds, we're going to unpack what retargeting really looks like in FinTech, how to design tests that measure true lift, why education can sometimes outperform the hard sell, and what automated campaign types can get wrong if you're not careful. Enjoy. Paul, thanks for joining us for a moment here.
Thank you so much, Sean.
What's the goal for retargeting in FinTech? I mean, there's the obvious, right? You want customers on more products, and you want more revenue. Is it anything more sophisticated than that?
I don't think so. I would just caveat with differentiating between paid retargeting and unpaid or retargeting that you can do with life cycle messaging. And then when we talk about paid retargeting, we really want to focus on driving incremental conversions. Retargeting as a strategy always looks great when you're looking at in-platform reporting, great CPAs, but is it incremental? That is a big focus for me when think about specifically paid remarketing.
Let's just zoom out for half a second and dig into what you just said. Okay, there is paid retargeting. That's what people mostly think about, right? They're with an ad network, they're on a platform. Here's my customers, here's my audience, and I want to hit them up. Or here's people who started on the journey of being a customer. I want to hit them up with a message. I want to get them back in, or I want to re-engage them in some way. But if they've already started, if you have some contact information, you can retarget without paying a penny.
Exactly. And that's generally what you want to do. I think, when it comes with all this, you want to measure and you want to test. One thing I'd say for fintech specifically, we're talking about financial products. There's different levels of complexity with that. And there's different kind of paths to conversion that folks go through. Once they visit your site or visit your app, they're very much in a discovery phase. And obviously there's messaging that you can think about there, but once they have submitted their email and given you their email, you have the opportunity to do a lot of things with them. And once they've installed the app, you have an opportunity to do a lot of things with them with push notifications where you don't have to spend a dollar. And if you're not doing any of that, that should be the first focus.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Cool. So let's say you're doing that, and that's good, and that's working, and that's perfect. That's some of the tech, obviously, that you're going to use for retargeting. That might be a messaging platform. That might be a sort of mobile CRM for you because you're multi-platform. That might be a big CRM that has mobile implications as well as web, as well as other platforms. So that's all great. If you're going to dip your toe into paid retargeting for people who are not on an owned platform, what do you do?
Sure. I think first it comes down to infrastructure. So you mentioned some of the platforms. Singular as an MMP allows us to, track installs, and we can send that data to our various ad platforms. We send a lot of data via a segment, our CDP, to ad platforms as well, and then we have pixels that we're leveraging for web acquisition. For me, generally, paid retargeting is the most incremental, where it's the website visitors who have not yet submitted their email, and then talking to those folks. There's obviously different time periods and different things that you want to communicate, but that's kind of where I like to focus. And then in terms of just audience sharing and things of that nature, there's a lot of automation you can do here, right? So when it comes to MMP data or pixel data or even CDP segment, you can automatically have those audiences uploading so that you're making sure you're retargeting the same, 30-day visit cohort over time, and that changes, or that you're excluding visitors and those kind of cohorts change and update in real time. So
And that automated is really important actually as well, because it's not like you have to wait a week and you get an export and then you send it somewhere and then it's happening kind of real time, right? So somebody is on your website, they don't really, pull the trigger, and then half an hour later they're somewhere else, they see a message and oh, maybe I should finish that. That's important, right?
yeah, absolutely. And I think the real time is an important note too for fintech. Like, I like to think about marketing generally as marketing against a spectrum of demand. And when you're thinking about retargeting, a lot of folks are kind of in that high demand stage. They're also kind of in discovery mode to a certain extent. So when it comes to messaging and creative there's a mix of things that work, right? Like, sometimes you want to use more direct response messaging, and that can be effective. But sometimes with fintech, it's a little bit counterintuitive because they might have high demand to sign up for a product, but they're still in discovery phase. So, for example, more educational ads, things like that might be more effective. How it works, one, two, three style things, kind of walking folks through some of that stuff that might actually even be considered low intent upper funnel messaging can work for fintech when they're really just trying to figure stuff out.
I can't tell you how much I love that, because sometimes the hard sell, the quick now, just the people get their hackles up. There's like, and they start getting worried or something like that, right? If they have the how to, if they have the interest, if they have the education, oh, that's how it works. Demystifies, right? What is demystified is safe, right? What is safe, I can do. That makes a ton of sense. Absolutely love that. Great insight. I want to hit another word that you mentioned 2 answers ago, and that was incremental. It's always interesting when you look at retargeting, because that's an audience. It's not the whole world. It's somebody who's already shown interest in you, right? And so you've got to look at incremental growth there, or incremental revenue there. How do you do that? That's pretty hard to piece out, isn't it?
It can definitely be hard to piece out if you're only looking at kind of attribution data when making those decisions. The way I would think about it is structuring incrementality tests. You can do things like run geo lift tests where you only show retargeting to a subset of visitors in a specific DMA or group of DMA. You can do kind of holdout tests on Facebook. Now, there's some caveats with test design because a lot of these incrementality tests require a healthy amount of volume and audience size to reach statistical significance, which inherently retargeting does not have. So when you think about some of these tests, you have to be mindful of, duration, budget, audience size to make sure you're reaching statistical significance.
Yeah, yeah, awesome. Cool. If you couldn't do any retargeting in your space, what would the impact be?
It's a funny thing. Like, when we think about retargeting, I think traditionally a lot of folks think about explicitly targeting website visitors, but a lot of your marketing, if you're doing paid, has some level of retargeting in it anyway. There's many platforms now, due to privacy challenges, that just don't allow you to run exclusions. And so, for example, on TV, like, we're not doing retargeting, but we're reaching hundreds of millions of people in our impressions. And that is some level of retargeting. So I would say, like, I would actually answer it in a different way, which is to say, like, think about your marketing mix and think about, like, are you excluding in the right areas, and where can you actually be auditing that a little bit?
Interesting. I guess if your brand gets big enough, then all marketing is retargeting to some level or not.
To some level, yeah, exactly. Yeah, and that's something I think that's like unique to the brand that I work for South, because we are at scale to a certain degree. There is kind of a natural customer journey that folks are converting organically and going through to traditionally, and we can retarget them on Facebook. Facebook will show us great CPAs, but it's just not incremental. Like, they're going to convert anyway. They know about Self, they're visiting our website, they're going through the process. Showing them an ad is wasted dollars at that point.
It's like the App Store. Sometimes you have to grab your own brand, you have to grab your own app's name, but you're angry the whole time because you know that some people who searched they're gonna install anyways, and you just paid that $3 to Apple or to Google for that reason. I want to hit one last thing, and that is something that you told me the last time we chatted, and I believe we talked just a little bit about retargeting in our Growth Masterminds interview, and you talked about iOS, lack of IDFA, and all that stuff. And you talked about how sometimes you're doing simple banner ads, static image ads on Meta, and that is retargeting in a sense. Talk about that.
Sure. So Facebook, Google, other platforms, a lot of fintechs are what's considered a housing credit or employment advertiser. And HCE has different policy kind of implications that each ad network take a different viewpoint on and a different perspective on. In the case of Facebook, for example, they have popularized advantage shopper campaigns, which a lot of companies are running right now. If you are an HCE advertiser, you cannot set an existing budget, existing customer cap on your campaigns. And when we actually looked at this and peeled open the layers on this, the onion, we showed that 60% of our spend was going towards retargeting audiences as we define them. And that's something to just be super mindful of. Like, for fintech advertisers, but for anyone that is operating in kind of that HE advertising space, if you're just, these automated campaign types, man, they're great, but like they are problematic if you do not know what you're doing.
I've talked to multiple people who've said the same thing, including where targeting goes and all that stuff. Paul, I want to thank you. You're an all-star. Much appreciated.
Thank you, John.